Christians who are not absolutely, and I don't mean just Christians, any patriotic Americans, any people who understand the role faith has played in our history, if you do not stand up and push back with everything you have against the idea that we can be a secular nation will ultimately be China. It'll be a place where the Faucis of this world will and can tell you what to do by force. And when people are burning Bibles and American flags, you might as well be cutting your hands off. These are the two things that have created more human flourishing, that have lifted human dignity on a level we've never seen in the history of the world. Those are the two things. If you're burning those things, something suggests to me that you don't understand that. Which, by the way, is the only hope for people who think racism is wrong. It is only the Bible that says we're made in God's image. Ask Marxists if they believe in God's image. Ask, what did Karl Marx say about races? He was a vicious racist.
Why is it so hard for our Democratic leaders to say unequivocally, I'm against attacks on churches, I'm against torching Bibles, and why is it so hard for Republican leaders to do anything about it?
It's ignorance, Tucker. Clyburn reminds me of Biden. He's sort of like a career politician, an animated waxworks dummy who has no idea of our history. He just wants to cling to power. He hasn't thought it through. He has no idea, just like, you know, maybe 50 years of Americans have no idea. We've forgotten that freedom is utterly impossible on the American model without the values we got from the Bible. It doesn't mean we can force people to be Christians or anything absurd like that, but the point is all the founders understood that the Bible wasn't just a sacred book for some people. It was what gave us the West and what led to the idea of freedom and self-government. And when you attack that, you're not just attacking a few people who believe in that book. You're attacking foundational ideas that most of our, certainly career politicians, have no clue about anymore.
So Christianity, among other things, limits the excesses of the state. This is why all authoritarian governments hate it, because when your population worships an actual God, that suggests that you are not God, and there are some things that you can't do. So without it, there's nothing they can't do. Isn't that the whole point?
Well, that is precisely the point. Look, say Jesus is Lord in China, or try it in North Korea. Try it in CHOP or CHAZ or whatever it was called. There are certain things that are so fundamentally threatening. The Bible and people who say, I have a higher authority than the state. I will bow to nothing but the God that I worship. Those people are tremendously frightening to authoritarian leaders. Hitler was one of them. He played patty cake with the church until the gloves came off, and he made it very clear that those people are the enemy. They're my real threat. And if I can defang them, but if I can take power, then they will be utterly defanged. And if I can kind of keep them quiet for now. So any Christians who are not absolutely, and I don't mean just Christians, any patriotic Americans, any people who understand the role faith has played in our history, if you do not stand up and push back with everything you have against the idea that we can be a secular nation will ultimately be China. It'll be a place where the Faucis of this world will and can tell you what to do by force. And when people are burning Bibles and American flags, you might as well be cutting your hands off. These are the two things that have created more human flourishing, that have lifted human dignity on a level we've never seen in the history of the world. Those are the two things. If you're burning those things, something suggests to me that you don't understand that.
Yeah. And we should also say they went after, in a big way, the Orthodox in New York and New Jersey who persisted in worshiping their God.
Of course. Of course.
And they were arrested for it in some cases. Eric in Texas, thank you so much.
No question. Thank you.
The video of the Catholic Mass in which the Nicene Creed has been replaced by talking points from BLM really should make us think.
Well, it's stroking violence, if I can coin a phrase. I'll be honest with you, if they had a swastika on the altar, it would be no different. Churches have always, Christians have always been at the forefront of fighting racism and slavery. There is no question about that. And we need to understand that the civil rights movement in this country and the abolition movement in Europe and in this country was led by Christians. What we're seeing here is something else entirely. The people who are using these new terms, systemic racism or white privilege, these are Marxists. These people not only don't believe in God, they hate God, and on the website, the BLM website, they reject just about everything a Christian would say. So what they are doing now, it's a power play. They want to hollow out the church from the inside because the real church is their enemy. This kind of a church that will do this kind of nonsense, of course, is perfect for them. But we saw this, unfortunately. I wrote a book about Bonhoeffer being a Christian in the 30s, seeing the Nazis do this. In other words, they didn't come and say, hey, we want you to worship the devil. Hey, we're atheists. Hey, we don't believe in God. They would come in and they would effectively co-opt the churches, but force the churches to play along just enough so that slowly they could confuse people and take over. And what we're seeing right now is exactly that. When you're using these kinds of terms, I want to say to every pastor, every Christian in America, this is something, if you do not reject this with everything you have, you are bringing about the death of Christian faith in America, which, by the way, is the only hope for people who think racism is wrong. It is only the Bible that says we're made in God's image. Ask Marxists if they believe in God's image. Ask, what did Karl Marx say about racists? He was a vicious racist, Karl Marx. So Marxists are just doing this to get power. They have no values. They couldn't care less about whether we're made in God's image. They don't believe in it. But they are using pastors like this and churches like this. And listen, there are many good Christians and good pastors who are going along with this, thinking they're doing a good thing. I want to say to them, you're riding on the back of a tiger. That tiger will eat you. That tiger hates you and is using you right now. This is a warning to every American. That is what's going on. I write about it in my Bonhoeffer book, and I've talked about it, but it is absolutely chilling. That video and what I read in the article, absolutely chilling. They are taking over churches. Don't let it happen to your church.
Our only hope is the knowledge that God created us all equal. All equal. We all have equal value, period. All lives matter. That's the Christian message. Eric Metaxas, thank you.
Thank you.